Hello, guys. Here we are. It's Laura. Thanks for joining me. We are going now to take 38 minutes, I think, to real time. I'm going to talk you through the entire drawing process that I had recorded on mute while I created the star card / peacock costume design, fashion illustrations. This isn't like a full-blown like lesson type tutorial. The ones that I'll be creating in the tarot sketch course will be more tutorial specific. This tool's this, that's that. But I replayed the real-time version of the creative creation of those designs and illustrations. And as I played it back, I just shared with you what was going on in my mind. I point out the key things that happened in my head, show you what's happening on the page. Because I think it's super useful for us to realize the realities of the creative process can be very surprising and insights that you probably wouldn't catch by just plain watching it. So since I know you are self-motivated learners, I'm leaving it to you to glean what you glean from this video and to share your questions with me with whatever questions come up as you watch it. Thank you for being creative with me, and I look forward to having sketching experiences like this with you in sketch groups, in masterminds, in online courses. The whole point is to bring the evolution of your style and the magic of discovery and exploration that comes when you create the space to create like this. And so often, great if you do it on your own, but when we work with others or even hold space with others, make a commitment, we're so likely to take it farther. And that's why I'm offering these structures to you. I can't wait to see what you're going to do. I hope you're going to share with me. All right, that's what I'm here for. See you on the other side. Paper with the texture. The fun thing about that is how rich colors look when you lay them on top of it. Then if you look at the left, you'll see that I selected the pencil tool because it's red. And I like to use a pencil that's pretty sheer and not too big, so I can just very lightly eke out some figures. Why? I feel like once the figures are there, then I can dress them. I was doing a total improvisation, and just even sketching out these figures is a way for me to segue into the creative process. It warms up my hands and it kind of just brings me into the space of the page. I was very aware, and always am, as I was doing this, that I didn't have an idea yet. But I have that faith that I will. If you look at what just happened at the right, that's a menu that shows layers. I think I was double checking to make sure that I was drawing on a separate layer than the actual paper, because that gives me a certain kind of freedom. I like to use the paper separate. And then I really follow my inspiration. Now this takes a lot of faith. Like, I was subtly thinking, I'm gonna start playing with her face. And so there I go. I zoomed in, started adding a face to these sketches. Remember, I have layers, so I can be as messy as I want on my thinking layer, quote unquote, because I know that later I can make this layer disappear or color over it. The only reason I mention that to you is because anything that takes the pressure off you or me to have to be super perfect in the moment, I find is the magic key to success. So, you know, knowing that you can make a drawing that doesn't have to be perfect from the get-go, and having layers means you can make a layer disappear later if you want. So anyways, I have my pencil, and I distinctly remember that during this sketching session, I felt really stumped. I was looking at the tarot card. I was inspired. I mean, I thought it was pretty, but I didn't know what I was gonna do. The beauty of a limited time sketch session is that you don't have time to overthink and you do stay more in the moment, which has a really energizing vibe to it. If you let it, you have to let it. You have to release judgment on yourself and allow yourself into a play space. Your drawing doesn't have to look like mine, doesn't have to look like anybody's. There's a lot of different formats you can use to creatively sketch. This is only one. And I teach a whole bunch of different kinds of formats. You get to put your hands in the clay. You get to play. But I like that this portion is in this video right here so that you can see and feel what pencil sketching is like. In Tayasui Sketches app, you can see that my lines are light, but they kind of get darker as I layer them on, which is very much like a natural pencil. And I love the unevenness of the lines because there's a softness to that. You can also see, I'm just bringing you into my world a little bit here. You can see that the figures were like stick figures that were posed, and now I'm drawing right over them with the stick figure still showing through. Like, that might seem really strange to you. I always call that X-ray vision. It's something we get into a lot in my courses, but I want you to notice how being able to quote unquote see the body behind the clothes helps me more than it hinders me. It helps keep movement inside the sketch. Not that our sketches have to have movement either, but it just, because it's kind of messy, quote unquote, that messiness actually gives me a freedom. Again, when everything's not stark and white and super perfect, I feel more at ease. I start to say, oh, this isn't going to be perfect. It's just going to be. And then I start tapping into like childhood, playfulness. And frankly, as I'm sketching this, I'm being surprised at each step of the way, like by whatever comes out. And I'm willing to sit with the discomfort sometimes. Oh, okay, now I'm choosing my watercolor tool. Because like riding a bicycle, the more you play this way, the more you will enjoy playing this way. Looks like right now I'm selecting colors from the card. Yes, I'm going into the card and looking for colors with my color picker that are in the inspiration piece of art. See, this woman that I drew all the way to the right, I decided I didn't like her as much as the other two, and I decided I'm going to focus on the two, and I'm going to compose this page by having color swatches on the right and sketches on the left. That was just a decision I made in a moment. So there's one color from the palette. I chose to make the paint opaque enough to kind of cover up what was behind it. However, I'll have you notice that I didn't make it totally opaque, because to me, every time they turn totally opaque, they lose their organic, mysterious, textural, natural quality. And for me personally, when things get too stark and too clean and hard and harsh, I start to feel again like there's some kind of perfection that needs to happen. This is a game I play with myself. And it's wonderful because I think I had a lot of perfectionist tendencies, and if I go for perfect, I'm going to destroy everything. So I keep this softness, this sense of process, this sense of playfulness, a sense of I don't know what's going to happen, and it's okay if there's little marks here and there. What matters most is the idea that comes out and the energy behind it and the experience of creating it. I need to be comfortable and relaxed enough to let that come through. When I get perfectionist, I get clogged and tense and stuck. That's my philosophy. This recording was done without voice. And you're literally getting my real-time speed of creating this drawing. So literally whatever ideas are showing up, whatever shapes I'm drawing, you're seeing them exactly in the, I'm gonna say channeled, in the way that they were channeled, like in the way that they came through. And now you see what I just did? I went from like a neutral phase of my drawing to a color palette phase. I identified the key colors that were in the inspiration image, the tarot card with the peacock on it. Now on the right you can see what my different layers look like. One is the paper, one is the gesture figures, and then there's another layer there. The third one up has my color swatches and my like design lines for the two dresses I drew. So this app that I'm teaching you, yes, you can zoom in. And so here I am zoomed in. I always say like I like my sketches better when they have faces that I like because it inspires me. I also zoomed in on the faces here because I literally had no idea what I wanted to do with the clothes. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Here I didn't. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna focus on these ladies because the more they start to take on their personalities, the more it will inform my next steps. So I'm sort of checking in with the world of imagination constantly and saying, now what? What do I do next? Oh, okay. Now what? You may not choose to work in this way, but I loved sharing with you that this is one way that you can work, especially after you know, the more foundations and experiences you have under your belt over practice and lessons and things you learn along the way, the more you will relax and expand into this playfulness. So I'm looking at my page, I'm choosing black, and I haven't talked to you about this, but if you look at the left, this is something I teach in my iPad and digital painting classes, but you see that red tab with the A on it at the left? There's a tool in there. It popped up earlier. I hope it'll pop up again soon. Hang on, we're just zooming in for a second. Okay. We just ended up somewhere else. Okay, I'm using a color picker to choose colors that rush to me. Hang on, I think we're gonna go backwards. Okay, back to the adding accessories inspired by the print. Hairstyles, small accessories before we're adding color to the clothes and stuff. Okay, but oh yeah, what I was telling you, sorry, I'm doing this improvisationally. That thing with the A on it, that's a tool that looks like watercolor. It's the same tool I use to create my color swatches at the right. See how it's kind of sheer? It's very gouache looking, which is an opaque kind of watercolor. But the thing is, the way it works is that
so just to reiterate,
see the tiny dots right now on the screen?
None of this is any kind of
tiny dots. The girl on the right.
At all.
You make a dotted line outline of any shape you want, and different ways you can that shape. It fills with color.
So cool.
When I zoom in, so
that
with 2 fingers on
is
a
what's
tablet
going
or
on.
iPad, you can just zoom in and out by spreading your fingers.
This is how I'm laying my paint
and look
down.
at the texture of the
So
pencil.
yeah, if you look at the
toolbar at the left, if I were to look all the way to the right of the screen,
or
I
just
want you
look
to notice
upward, there's some
sliders.
paintbrushes.
there are
two,
paintbrush
one
tools.
above and
If
one
I choose
below.
one of those paintbrush
That's
tools,
for regulating how opaque
I would
or
choose
sheer
a
your tools
paintbrush
are
size
and how large or
and
small
I
your
would
tools
choose
are.
a paint
If you look all the way at the left,
opacity,
you'll see
either
the
like
red
100%
tool
opaque
is an
or like,
ink
which I
pen
told you I don't
that's
really like,
selected,
or something
and I
very
just use
sheer.
that
I get to decide.
create the gathers on
And
the
then I
shoulder
would
of
take my
the model
paintbrush and
at
kind
the
of
right.
paint
So,
strokes to fill in all these shapes.
The ink
And I used to
pen
do that
tool
when I
is-
first learned to
especially
draw
because
digitally, but
I'm
now
using
I'm like
black
so
and I have the
excited because
opacity slider all
when I
the way up.
use this tool with the A
It's
on
a
it,
very harsh, clean
you know what I'm talking
line.
about, it's
So
red
I
at the
went
left.
back.
I get to fill
I
a
go
whole
back and
shape
make it
with
thinner?
watercolor at once.
Yeah. Now I'm choosing
And you
my
can't tell
shape
so much
tool.
in this
If you look at the
video, but
left,
if I
you
was
see
using
that
white
watercolor
paper, you would
shape
see
tool,
these
that's
large
my quote
watercolor
unquote
shapes
gouache.
are
That is my
not
go-to.
even
I'm
in
like
tone.
madly
It's
in
not
love with
flat.
that tool.
It's definitely
Okay,
got
so
a nice uneven.
You don't
to it
have,
that
you
makes
may
it
not have
feel,
the tarot card to
um,
reference on hand right now, but
kind of
it
organic
has a
and
beautiful
textural. And to
feathery
me, that's very
pattern that
sensual
actually
and
looks like
vital
leaves
that
and flowers
the art supplies have
on the
a-
peacock's
an
tail.
unevenness to them.
And so I definitely decided that I was going to use these like
what else did I
solid
wanna
colored
tell you?
color blocking on her dress
Before
that you
I
see.
Unplug
And now
to put my battery
for
in.
drama really, because
I guess
this
you
is
just see
so
that I'm
much about
working
drama
one
to
color at
me.
a time, and I'm
I
color blocking
am
this garment to include like different
drawing out
panels
the
of
print
different colors.
on this
And all of those
triangle that is
choices I've
representing
made
like a chiffon
are totally
scarf
inspired
that she's
by the
holding.
patterns on the back
And I
of
wonder,
the
I thought that would be a
peacock's
really fun way to play
feathers.
with the composition of the page, because everything right now is solid fabrics, and this is a great way to have a graphic pattern. Because I was thinking of it as chiffon, clearly you can see that I made it sheer, but then also instead of using the ink pen, which is an option, but I see that I'm using a pencil tool. You see how it's a little bit gritty? That's so like chiffon or crepe, right? It's more fabric like. I took the pattern I saw and I just like freestyled, like very much inspired by it, and then also letting it play out in its own way. It's like I got to decide how large the scale of the print would be, and just feeling it out as I go. I guess another thing I didn't mention about this process was that I used my finger for all of this. My stylus battery was dead. And I think it's important to mention that as well, because when I started using like an Apple pencil, I was really not into it. It was too slippery. It's like ice skating on ice skating or downhill skiing. It was like too speedy compared to pencil. I wanted that little bit of resistance. And so I started using my finger to get that like groundedness. I felt that with the slippery and the speed, I was getting too much in my head and not enough in my body. As if you study with me, a lot of times we talk about just how to draw with our whole body, not just our brain and our fingers. So using my fingers to draw without holding a pencil, just touching the glass, really soothes my nerves and like chills me out into the process. And notice how I zoom in and out. Now that's really important for me to do. Always I recommend this, because if you work only zoomed in to an area for too long, you lose your sense of how what you're working on relates to the whole. Completely lose your sense of how it impacts everything around it. And so let's say I was working on regular paper. Every one of these leaves or feathers that I'm drawing right now would constantly be relating, harmonizing with even the girl on the other side of the page and even the edges of the page. They're all relating to each other. Relationships. It's an orchestration, right? So when you're only working in a small area, you're almost a little bit blind because you are not getting that awareness of your surroundings while you work. And so oftentimes, after you zoom back out, you might be really surprised at how it balances with everything else. So always bear that in mind, that when you are zoomed in, you're losing some of your bearings about being aware of what's going on around you. While we're zoomed in, I want you to look at the paper real quick. Do you see that, like recycled paper? How it looks like it has like little bits of like grit and debris in the paper. I really like that. Also, when we're zoomed in, if you look at the color swatches, those, you see how the edges of the watercolor swatches has like an uneven edge as well. So if you look at the black that's available right here, the big black swatch, you see the unevenness of the color. These are all specific reasons why I love Tayasui Sketches app so much. It just really feels natural. But what are some of the shocking benefits of it also is that I can literally paint and then undo what I painted. Or it's a little bit different than erasing, but similar to erasing. You can lay down color, lay down paint, lay down lines, and then you can remove them one by one chronologically. So that gives you the freedom to take risks, quote unquote risks, to try things, and then if they don't work, kind of undo them. You can't really do that with paint on paper. Yeah. And so see, I keep zooming out, and there's a very specific reason why I kept doing that. Every time I zoomed out, I was able to reassess, did I want the print to become more dense, less dense? I'm noticing right now as I'm like voice overing this video, I'm noticing that when I zoomed out, I had a whole new vision for the print. So your creative process never stops. Like now I'm looking and I'm like, ooh, some of those big shapes should have red in them. So the creative process is always evolving. Your ideas are always breeding new ideas. And I love that. And that's also why I like drawing out a process, like letting things take longer gives you more time to sit with them and watch them birth more and more new ideas. So the girl on the right is becoming more complete, and you can see I'm just sitting here doing nothing right now in the drawing because I recorded this in real time. Real time means, sometimes I'm just taking it in and asking the drawing, what do you want from me next? When I look back at my reference, the peacock pattern / print had various tones and shades of green in it. So I went to my color picker and decided, okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of a darker green. Right? See how I have a very pale seafoam green on the printed scarf? Well, now I decided to mix it up, add a little depth, add a little contrast by bringing in more opaque as well as darker layers of green. So you'll see that happen in a minute. I literally created this drawing during a live session with a client and recorded it in real time, and so this video is real time. Maybe I could speed up a portion. It looks like I'm frozen in space. Hang on. So if you were peeking over my shoulder right now, what you'd be seeing is me looking at the card in my hand and looking at the screen. I'm looking at the card in my hand and looking in the screen. I'm a little bit like a deer in the headlights, and I'm thinking to myself, what choices do I want to make? What colors do I want to use? Oh, and I just had a memory also that I was literally coloring in all those leaves and it wasn't showing up, and it ends up I was doing it on the wrong layer. That's why suddenly you see the color appear. I think I went and brought that layer to the surface. But this is the stuff. I mean, sometimes those mistakes that happen along the way end up being like the most genius thing that happened. So I love that interplay between us and the universe while we're creating. I prefer when it's a back and forth conversation with magic, you know, and it's not all about 100% your will just being imposed on the page. Really want you to think about taking that playful attitude. And to have that playful attitude, I think you need to be willing to make something ugly or make something messy, make something that you're not going to want to keep. So like you have your love for beauty and inspiration, but you're willing to be humbled. Yeah, and the more playful I am, the less I am likely to do a drawing that I don't like. It's this really funny game I play with myself when I work. I don't know if you guys do that. So again, I don't see any action here, but while we're here, you can see the gouache, the different opacities of the gouache that I used. We're zooming in on the face now. You can see everything is very loose. I'm adding ink pen to give a pattern to her headband. I added accessories now to her ear, makeup. And I chose to do a style with this where usually skin tone is the first thing I put down before I even illustrate clothes. But in this layout, at some point I sort of decided that I was going to use pencil and paper, and then only and no skin tone at all. That's for fun. I'm back to using my ink pen. You can see if you look at the left toolbar, the fine line pen, and if you look at the panel up at her shoulder level, this girl on the right, I'm creating pleats using that fine line pen. I originally intended this woman on the right to be like a back view, but it ends up that I will make it I decided halfway through that would become the front. I realized it wasn't that specific because it was loose. It's like you can't really see the bust or the hips or anything, so it became a front view with a very straight across neckline. Very dramatic. Now don't forget what I was telling you before about the periphery. Like while working on one thing, you know, this whole time on my left eye is kind of thinking, what am I doing with this girl on the left? And here's the thing, when you don't know what to do, don't do. Okay, this is my thing. It's like when you don't have an idea, that's when you do like house cleaning kind of stuff. Like, oh, I'm just gonna see this line I just put in. Oh, I'm just gonna add a line there, or like, oh, let me just, you know, outline this or that. Like, there's always something you can do while you don't know what to do. You know what I mean? So I'm quite anxious about what to do with in one place. While if I don't know what to do yet, then I just don't do it yet. I'm terribly sorry that in the throes of this creative process, I forgot to press record while I designed the dress on the left. But I will reiterate that this was a 1 hour session. That's it. No more. So somehow I came up with this black dress with color blocking. You'll see when we zoom out again. And these head dresses that were kind of inspired by the peacock's head. So fun. The pattern on her black dress is inspired by that print that we used on the chiffon scarf, and the pink embroidery detail that you see on the black dress is taken from you can see when you look close at the card again. I've added the card to this video so you can pause and look at it, and also there's a final picture at the end where I show the illustration and the card all together. So then you can really look back and forth and see where I took different elements from. So I decided that this cape I don't know still. Maybe it'll be chiffon and maybe it'll be more heavyweight. Those are things I'm still thinking about. Like, is this soft and flowing behind her, or is this all more solid? Okay, see the print? Yeah, you know what? I would like to slow that slide down more. Here I'm coloring in the headdresses. Inside the cape, you could see that I added a pattern that also came from the card. You can see I imported the image of the card. Oh, and I love this part. In this part, I delete different layers so you can sort of see one layer at a time. And I love the abstractions and surprises that come when I do that. Like, you might want to rewind and replay the last few minutes for the sheer fun of, like, I love this part. Kind of deconstructing what I've drawn. Because it's almost like there's all these layers of tracing paper, right? And then when you bring them all together, you get the finished image. I'm so happy to have this experience and share it with you.